Hey everyone, and welcome back to Stealthy vs. Healthy. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different from the rest. I'm not going to joke around, I'm not going to soften the truth, because the topic we're discussing today is something I wish we didn't have to. It ruins lives, it breaks families, and way too often it starts as something small, just experimenting, trying to cope with anything before it spirals out of control. I'm talking about teenage substance abuse. This episode is not meant to judge anyone for their personal choices. It's about understanding why substance abuse starts, what happens in the brain and the body when you abuse substances, the risks involved, and how to get yourself or loved ones out before it's too late. If you're listening because you're worried about someone or you're just curious about the risks, I'm glad you're here. What I'm about to say will change the way you think about substances forever. Just a little trigger warning, this episode does contain mentions of drugs and drug-related crime. Now, it's easy to assume that substance abuse starts with a bad decision made by dumb teens. But the truth is far more complex. Whether it's nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, or prescription pills, the path usually begins with curiosity, social pressure, or need to cope with something, like stress, anxiety, trauma, or loneliness. From a biological perspective, the teen brain is still developing, especially the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and impulse control. At the same time, the reward system in the brain is very highly active. This means that some teens are more likely to seek out new experiences, take risks, and chase dopamine in unnatural ways. For others, substance abuse is done to fit in. The fear of being left out and being seen as uncool can push teens to make choices they would never make alone. And once you start, it's easy to convince yourself that you're in control, until suddenly you're not. Peer pressure isn't always someone shoving a drink in your hand. Sometimes it's quiet voices in your head whispering, maybe just once is how addictions begin. And there's environmental influence as well. Growing up in a home or community where substance abuse is common or normalized can normalize the behavior before you even realize it's harmful. If the people you love and trust are using substances regularly, it can send the message that this is just a normal form of coping. And just like that, the cycle begins. What starts as just once in a while or I'll be in control can become a crutch, and that crutch is notoriously difficult to get rid of. In the moment, substances might feel helpful when someone uses them. It can seem like they ease stress, quiet anxiety, or make it easier to just get through the day. But behind those short-term effects are deeper, long-lasting consequences, especially for teens. Now, when we talk about the effects of substance abuse on the body, it helps to understand that not all drugs affect your body in the same way. Most recreational drugs actually fall into four main categories: depressants, stimulants, hallucinogens, and opioids. Each group interacts with the brain slightly differently, but they can all cause lasting harm, especially during teen years. Depressants, such as alcohol and benzodiazepines, slow down activity in the brain and central nervous system. That's why they're often used to reduce anxiety or numb emotional pain. But abusing depressants often leads to slowed breathing, impaired coordination, memory loss, and extreme drowsiness. Over time, these substances can depress brain functions so much that your body forgets how to regulate basic life functions like breathing or heartbeats. Stimulants, including nicotine, cocaine, and methamphetamines, do the complete opposite. They speed up brain activity, making you feel more awake, alert, and even euphoric. But that burst of energy comes at a huge price. Stimulants place insane stress on your heart and nervous system, and long-term abuse can lead to anxiety, paranoia, insomnia, various heart problems, and serious crashes in mood and energy. They can also quickly create tolerance, which means you need more and more to get the same effect. We discussed this tolerance in the caffeine episode as well. So it just means you need more and more of a drug to get the same effect. Now, opioids like oxycodone, morphine, heroin, and fentanyl are some of the most dangerously addictive substances in the world. They attach to pain receptors in your brain and nervous system and flood your system with dopamine, which creates a strong feeling of relief and euphoria. However, as this tolerance builds, the brain becomes a lot less responsive and people need much higher doses just to feel anything. The risk of overdose is especially high with opioids because they can suppress the part of the brain that controls breathing, similar to depressants. One misuse, especially with something as potent as fentanyl, can be very fatal. And because opioids chemically alter how the brain experiences pain and pleasure, quitting can be both physically and emotionally overwhelming without proper care. And now finally, hallucinogens like LSD and mushrooms or certain synthetic drugs alter how you perceive reality. Some people experiment with them to escape, like confines, or feel more creative, or disconnect from emotional pain through euphoria. But these drugs cause dangerous distortions in judgment and intense anxiety and panic, and in some cases, long-lasting mental health issues, like psychosis. While not all hallucinogens are physically addictive, the psychological effects can be very frightening, especially for teens whose brains are still learning how to process and regulate emotions. And by doing this, substances also alter the lives of those around you. So substance abuse often leads to impaired judgment and risky behavior. One of the most dangerous outcomes is driving under the influence. Teens who drive after using alcohol or drugs are far more likely to get into accidents, most of which are fatal. According to the CDC, motor vehicle crashes in the U.S. are a leading cause of death for teens, and about 1 in 4 fatal crashes involve underage drinking or recreational drug use. There's also a connection between substance use and crime, especially in teens. Whether it's possession charges, theft to support a habit, or getting caught with the wrong crowd, drugs can really push people towards decisions they'd never make while they're sober. The Child Crime and Prevention and Safety Center says that about 80% of minors in juvenile justice systems were under the use of drugs or alcohol when committing their crimes. And there's also strain on family and close relationships. Addiction doesn't always stay contained. When someone else is using, trust that people put in them breaks down. A lot of arguments increase. Siblings and friends and family feel neglected. Parents feel helpless and scared, and sometimes even at fault. They believe it's their fault that they weren't regulating their children enough. Over time, substance use can create a lot of emotional distance that's really hard to come back from. Academic and career impacts are also big issues. Missed classes, failing grades, disciplinary action. Substances don't just ruin your present, they can ruin your future. Colleges can rescind offers. Job applications can get rejected because of a criminal record, drug test failures, or unexplained gaps in performance. And sometimes these consequences don't even unfold gradually. They happened all at once. One single night, one single pill that wasn't actually what it seemed. Now, when it comes to substance abuse, the best way to protect yourself is to never start in the first place. But if you've already taken that first step or feels like you're getting pulled in deeper, know that it's never too late to change direction. Both prevention and recovery start with small but meaningful choices that we can talk about now. First, let's talk about prevention strategies. Number 1, build a support system. One of the most powerful ways to prevent substance abuse is to surround yourself with people who care about your well-being. That could be friends who share your values, mentors who listen, and family members who believe in you. They can all make it easier to make the right choices. When you're part of a strong support system, you don't have to face pressure or stress alone. Having someone to talk to when life feels overwhelming can be the difference between choosing a destructive coping mechanism like substances and choosing a healthier one. A good support system doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to be seen, heard, and encouraged to stay on a strong path. Number 2. Fill your life with purpose. When your time and energy are invested in things that you care about, like sports, clubs, music, volunteering, working towards personal goals, whatever floats your boat, substances lose their appeal. Purpose gives you a reason to say no when you're pressured and gives a reason to keep going when things get tough. This one also kind of relates to the first one. Stay with people that you like, doing things that you like. It also connects you to others who are focused on growth and progress. The more you build your identity around the things you love doing, the less space there is for substances to define who you are. Number 3, know the facts. Making smart choices starts with knowing the truth. Too often, teens start using because they've been misinformed. They think certain substances are harmless, natural, or easy to quit. But by knowing the real science behind how drugs and alcohol affects your brain and body, you gain power. You're less likely to fall into the trap of thinking just once is no big deal when you understand that addiction can start earlier than most people even realize. Don't rely on myths and rumors. Seek out reliable, research-backed sources and stay informed. Knowledge gives you the confidence to say no. Now, if you're already using, the first step is to talk to someone you trust. The first and often hardest step towards stopping substance abuse is breaking the silence. You don't have to have all the answers or even be sure you want to quit yet. Just start by talking to someone you trust. Choose someone like a parent, a teacher, a school counselor, a coach, a sibling, or even a close friend, and just let them know what you're going through. Opening up might feel scary, but it immediately makes the situation less isolating. It turns a private struggle into a shared one, and that's where healing can begin. You don't have to face this crisis alone, and you shouldn't have to. Second thing you want to do is seek professional support. Recovery isn't something you have to figure out on your own. Therapists, addiction counselors, school social workers, and support programs are trained to help teens like you navigate this journey. Whether you need a safe space to talk, medical care, or structured recovery support, there are people and systems designed to help you get better without any shame or judgment. Asking for help isn't weak. It's one of the strongest things you can do. Number 3, find healthy coping tools. Substance use often starts as a way to cope with something: stress, trauma, anxiety, sadness, boredom. So when you stop using, it's crucial to replace that habit with something healthier. Explore coping strategies like journaling your thoughts, listening to music, exercising, drawing, meditating, spending time in nature, whatever you enjoy doing. These things won't fix everything overnight, but they do give your brain a chance to reset and remind you that relief doesn't have to come from something harmful. Now, if you follow all these steps, but you still kind of mess up, it's fine. If you slip up, that doesn't mean that you've completely failed. Because my next piece of advice is don't let a relapse define you. The path to sobriety isn't a straight line. It's full of ups and downs. What matters most isn't the mistake itself, but what you do next. A relapse might mean your stress is too high or your support system needs to be stronger. Instead of giving up, reflect on what happened, reach out for help, and keep moving forward. Now, my last piece of advice applies to everyone, and it's speak up for a friend. If you see someone struggling with substance abuse, don't ignore it. You don't have to be an expert, you just have to care enough to say something. Let them know you're there for them, that you've noticed a change, and that they don't have to go through this alone. Offer to help them talk to an adult, or find some support for them. Sometimes all it takes is one person showing concern to start someone on the path to recovery. Be that person. You could save a life. While people who are suffering from addiction may believe that they can get by alone and that they are in control, the truth is that substance abuse isn't a problem that any one person can solve. It takes a group of people who will listen without judgment and stay even when things get hard, because recovery isn't always a straight line. It's a process filled with setbacks, breakthroughs, and growth. And while the path is yours to walk, you don't have to walk it alone. In fact, you shouldn't. Healing starts with one brave step. And sometimes the first step is simply reaching out a hand and letting someone take it. If this episode meant something to you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Whether they're struggling with substance abuse, supporting someone who is, or just trying to understand the risks, I hope they'll find it helpful. Until next time, take care of yourself, look out for others, and remember, you're never alone in this fight.